This week's video game showcase is Bram Stokers Dracula. Released in 1992 by publisher Sony ImageSoft, this game would release on the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and have other versions on the Sega CD, NES, and Game Boy. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Sega Genesis version. So join me as we take a look at Bram Stokers Dracula. All right, and through the power of editing, we are back here, and we are going to take a closer look at Bram Stoker's The Dracula. We have the case here, the manual that we're going to take a look at as well, and looking at the cover art here, you can see it's got Dracula's castle in the background there, and it is made by Sony ImageSoft, which is pretty cool. And then we'll take a quick look at the back here. And it simply says, Bram Stoker's Dracula goes straight for the jugular with spine-chilling action. So real you won't believe your eyes. Experience 7 terrifying levels, each divided into day and night, and plunge deep into the ultimate interactive movie, complete with incredible 16-bit graphics. And of course you can see that graphics on display there. And great sound that bring to life the cold, dark dungeons of Castle Dracula, the brutal Transylvanian countryside in eerie 19th century London. During the day, you'll search for weapons while fighting off bloodthirsty bats and poisonous spiders. Then, as the sun sets, the evil Prince of Darkness rises and attacks as a bat, a vicious wolf, even as an old man, but make no mistake, he must be stopped. And as you can see, it is a single-player game. And then we got a couple of screenshots. Hopefully it comes over well on the camera here. And then we're going to crack open this bad boy. And it is a complete in-box copy. I just bought this a few days ago. In fact, I live streamed playing this game via multi-cart. And I ended up enjoying the game so much that I decided that I was going to go out and buy a complete in-box copy for myself. We'll put that aside. We're going to take a look at the manual here. And we will take a look at the back first here. And coming soon, look for the video game of Last Action Hero. For your Sega CD, Genesis, and Game Gear systems, Last Action Hero. Another great soundtrack you can really sink your teeth into. So you got to see, they were definitely playing into the whole vampire thing during their advertisements here. The Last Action Hero, I enjoyed the movie, but it was a flop for Mr. Schwarzenegger. And I don't think they ended up making another one. And the games I have not played myself, but from what I've seen on other YouTube channels, it is not a very good game, no matter where you play it. But maybe one day we will play and find out ourselves. So, as in particular fashion here, the front cover of the manual just matches the case there. So we'll get right into it. And one of the things that I was actually disappointed looking at this manual, because I did peek at it when I first got this, is the presentation of it. And I don't know if it's because they were trying to capture a certain look, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But you can see they have this old style paper and the candle, and everything is in black and white, which is fine. But I would have liked to see, I do like color manuals, but my guess is that maybe they were trying to capture that old movie style black and white feel. So maybe they decided to go with this presentation, or they were trying to save money on ink. I don't know. So here we go. So this I ended up reading early, and I found it a little bit interesting, right? Sega Genesis cartridge is intended for use exclusively with the Sega Genesis system. Handle it with care. Do not bend it, crush it, or submerge it in liquids. Now, I'm not familiar with the if there was anything else that you could actually try to play these cartridges on. I don't know if they had clone Sega Genesis consoles back in the day. Um, and obviously, you don't want to crush, submerge it in liquids because that would not be a good thing for the game. Do not leave it in direct sunlight or near a radiator or other sources of heat. So apparently, this cartridge is vampire, so they are allergic to sunlight. But no, it's made out of plastic, so probably will melt the casing. And be sure to take an occasional recess during extended play. I found this last sentence to be the interesting part, to rest yourself and the Sega cartridge. So I don't know if there was instances where playing a Sega Genesis cart for too long would cause it to overheat or cause damage. I never had that problem, and I played, as a kid. Sometimes we did those 24-hour all-nighters playing the Sega Genesis, and never had any issues. So I don't know, maybe it did happen. And over here you have your control scheme. It's really just laying out what the three-button controller looks like, because this is a game that does only support the three-button controller. If you have a six-button, the additional three buttons will not do anything in this game. And it's just labeling what the ABC. It's not actually telling you, so maybe later on it'll tell you what the actual buttons do. And it says, in the black of night he stalks his unwitting victims with the passion of a prince and the grace of a wild animal, able to assume the guise of everything from a shadow on the wall to a jagged-toothed wolf beast. He feeds on the living, sinking his pearly fangs into their fair throats, for a drink of their life-giving blood, for he is the Prince of Darkness, Count Dracula, and he's cast his hypnotic spell on your lovely mistress, Mina Murray. Now you, Jonathan Harker, must drive a stake through the heart of this vampire and save the fair Mina from a fate worse than death, eternal life as a vampiress. So, honestly, I have never read the Bram Stoker Dracula book, and I don't really remember the movie all that well. I was a little kid when this game came out, when this movie came out, and then obviously the game itself. So I do remember the movie bits and pieces here and there that I watched as a kid. I don't know how faithful the movie adaptation is to the book, and vice versa, on how faithful this video game is. My guess would be that it is more faithful to the movie than it is the actual book itself. Continuing on, it just simply says controlling Harker. So it does give you a little bit more information here on what those actual buttons do. You have your main game menu here. The interesting thing about the main menu system is this game did come out on the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. And for these two versions, they actually allow you to scale the difficulty a little bit. You can actually select how many lives you want and how much power you want. However, based on how much power you give yourself, will give you less lives, and the less power you give yourself, you could actually have more lives. So you can scale a little bit and make the game a little bit easier. In my opinion, the Sega Genesis version is the best version of this game to play. The Super Nintendo is not bad. It's still a good way to experience this game, but it is much more difficult. In fact, there are a lot more enemies in that one, and like I said, they do tend to be a little bit more aggressive on these Super Nintendo versions. There's some different variations with bosses, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the Genesis version, I think, is the most fair. It's still difficult, don't get me wrong. It's not a cakewalk, but it's the most enjoyable of all the Dracula games. The NES and Game Boy versions, they are completely different. They're okay for what they are. Again, I prefer the Genesis, and the Sega CD version is an abomination that I would not even wish upon my enemies to play that game. I do not recommend it. I don't recommend that you buy it or play it, but there is emulation if you want to experience it for yourself. Then you can decide whether I have a bad take on it or not. Oh, continuing on the manual here, just kind of explains what's going on the menu and on the screen here, showing you your lives, points, current weapons, and things like that. And then moving on, it actually gives you all the different scenes that you're going to be encountering. So the cool thing about this game is it is broken up into two different sections. You have a day and then a night cycle that they call it. It isn't anything as complex as, say, Simon's Quest, where there's an actual timer and the game actually changes from night to day. It's nothing like that. It's basically, level one dot A is daytime, and then when you exit that stage, it's basically a continuation of level one dot B, but now it's nighttime. But the scenery typically does change, and then the nighttime is when that's when you'll face the boss battle for that particular level. All right. In order to advance from level to level, you must destroy all kinds of enemies and get past Dracula. Beware, Dracula can assume the form of everything from a bat to a shadow on the wall. The following is a brief description of what you'll face in each level. And obviously, this is your opening level here. You begin your quest inside an old rat-infested village inn. Watch out for wild dogs, bug-eyed bats, hungry rats, and club-happy henchmen, which will throw their booze at you. So one of the things that I do want to point out for you that are going to be checking out this game is this character here, who is Van Helsing. When you meet him, there's going to be this bubble that appears, and it took me a little while to figure out what exactly he was communicating to me. A lot of times you'll think, okay, I got to grab that weapon and come back to him, but that's not the case. What happens is when you find Van Helsing, he's going to give you an item here. Well, not give you an item. He's going to tell you an item. And as you go back through this level to go out to the exit, you'll see different types of items within that level. And basically, the item that he is telling you to get is basically the best weapon to use against the boss in the next level that's coming up. So that's what you want to do. You typically want to find whatever item that he's telling you to get, and then you can exit the stage. And then you will go into the night section of the next level here. On the way to Castle Dracula, you'll have to make your way through mossy fields and jagged rocks formations while fending off bats, spear-wielding henchmen, and protruding skewers. And watch out for the blue Dracula and his mighty whip. So that item that Van Helsing will tell you, when you're facing the blue Dracula, that item is going to deal a little bit more damage, or at least make it easier for you to take out that enemy. Although I will be honest, the boss fights are typically not where you're going to have your struggles. It's usually the platforming, traps, and enemies that are within that stage that are going to get you more so than the bosses. Once you figure out the pattern of the bosses, they're pretty simple, especially for this day and age. And then it just continues. You go escape from Castle Dracula over here. And again, you're going to have your day where you'll find your item. And then over here, you'll have your night version where you're fighting. And it actually shows a screenshot of the particular boss battle. So it's Dracula in his dragon form here. As long as you get the dynamite that Van Helsing tells you to get, this boss is extremely easy. In fact, you can kill him even before he reaches you over on this left side here. And then you're continuing Harker's escape from the castle. And I remember watching this game as a kid because my cousin had this game, and I loved watching him play video games. This was the cousin in the family that always had the cool games, always got the latest console, so it was always cool going to his house and watching him play these games. And I remember playing it myself as well, and it seemed like this level here was a lot harder in my mind back then. And I think when I replayed it on my live stream not that long ago, I ended up beating it, on my first try or so. And it's a lot shorter than what I remember it being too. But I remember being a kid in these Dracula's brides chasing you through the castle. It was a pretty frightening thing at the time for Little Mac Cam 89. And used to get me all the time. So I don't understand what it was. And then, of course, you're going to continue your journey to the two civilizations. So you're basically making your way back to London. And there are quite a bit of stages here. Again, you got your day and night cycles. This boss here, he reminds me of, looks wise, he reminds me of the one of the boss characters in Resident Evil Village. But he's got the speed of Cabal from Mortal Kombat. One big note that I will say, if you're going to play the Super Nintendo version, that Cabal move where he's running super fast from left to right will deal damage to you on the Super Nintendo version, whereas on the Sega Genesis version, it will not. So, kind of a difference there that kind of shows the Sega Genesis version being a little easier, especially in some of these boss fights here. And then this next level here, I'll know it shows a zombie. The zombies in this level are not too bad, but they get really hard in one of the later stages here. All right, and continuing on, we are on the estate. And this is basically where I fail. So I have yet to beat this game. Hopefully I can change that in the near future. But I can basically make it to the end of this level here. But this is the level where the zombies come out. And they are really hard. For some reason, they take more damage. And there's a lot of platforming in this stage, where the platforms are really small and there's a zombie on it. And they're hard to kill. So you got to time your jump just right. Get them. And then you're going to have other zombies that are going to pop up on that small platform. So it makes it really difficult when facing them. And then, of course, we have the estate nighttime continued here. Eventually, you make your way to London. You're continuing your London levels here. And then eventually, you do end up at Castle Dracula. I do remember seeing my cousin. He did beat this game, but I have yet to beat it. And I don't remember what the ending is like, so I do want to change it. And now that I, kind of am more invested in this game, I will definitely be trying to actually complete this game. And it says, at last, the main event. Welcome to the inner sanctum of Castle Dracula. There's only one way out, and that's up. Use floating blocks to ride past rafters and evil gargoyles. Then keep your balance and elude laser-spitting granite skulls, giant bats, and the red armored clad Dracula that you saw in the beginning of the Sega Genesis version there. And then from there, you just have your limited warranty, nothing there special, and then some blank pages, and then, of course, the advert for the last action here. So that is everything on Bram Stokers Dracula. Highly recommend this game, and not just because it is the month of October, but this is a fun game to experience year-round. Highly recommend it. I do recommend the Sega Genesis version, and then I would recommend the Super Nintendo version as well. The others, again, completely different games. Not my cup of tea, but maybe a little bit fun for some of you if you want to check out the NES or Game Boy versions. Sega CD, I would steer clear from. But that is everything for this episode. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, please be sure to subscribe if you have not. Also, please be sure to like and share this, and leave a comment in the comment section below. What were your favorite memories about this game? Did you beat it? Which version of this game did you play? And as always, happy gaming, and God bless.